So Gernot Rohr has named his squad for the two games this month. The first, the AFCON qualifier against Seychelles, and then the second one, a friendly against Egypt. Now, a couple of things stick out immediately for me. Essentially, it's basically the same squad, which shows that, again, excuse me, it proves to us that Gernot Rohr knows his team inside out, and if there are going to be any additions, it's just one or two here and there. And it is those additions that we'll focus on as we do, well, a couple of hot takes, three actually for this list. Now, but let's start with the big one, and the big one is the absentee, the big masquerade, so to speak, and that would be Mikel Obi. Mikel is the Super Eagles captain, but the last time he turned out for the national team was at the World Cup in Russia, where he led the team out against Argentina. Since then, Mikel has not played for the Super Eagles, and by March, that would be 8 months and counting. And that means that, you know, we do expect him to be at the African Nations Cup this June, but what it essentially means is that by the time the Super Eagles go to the Nations Cup, Mikel will probably only have 2 weeks of training with the team and maybe playing at most 2 games because they'll probably have a couple of test games going into the African Nations Cup. Now, my thinking on this is I'm not quite sure what the reason is, you know, for Mikel not being in the squad again. The last time Gernot Rohr explained that when Mikel is ready, he'll call him back, and it was due to a combination of injuries and wanting to help his Chinese club escape relegation. They didn't do that, and then he got injured. But now he's back playing in England with Middlesbrough to get his fitness up. And, you know, I would have thought that, I mean, he's not injured. Maybe he's not 100% fit, but you know, it would have been good to see him come to Nigeria, inspire his teammates a little bit, get in the mood with the squad, and you know, just be the captain. You know, unfortunately, that is not going to happen. We don't know why, but I mean, personally, I would love to have seen him. He's such an inspirational character, both in and off. But on and off the field, that, you know, it would be actually quite good to have him in the squad. But like I said, I don't know the reasons why he's not being called up. I think that's between him and Gernot Rohr. But I do hope that you know, everything is sort of ironed out. Well, if I say ironed out, it seems like there's a problem. I don't think there is, but I do think that what I'm trying to say is that I do hope that you know, all of that is put to one side so he can be at the training camp in Europe, as I hear, before the Nations Cup, because these are going to be the last games that Nigeria will play, the Super Eagles will play in Nigeria for this year. Well, that's it on Mikel. The second thing I wanted to point out is on the midfield. We're really, really short in midfield. We have 5 midfielders and 8 strikers. You know, and even Shemi Ajayi, who's been named as a midfielder, is usually played as a defender, even though we know he can play midfield. So essentially, we've got Shemi Ajayi, we've got Oganekaro Etebo, we've got Wilfred Ndidi, and John Ogus. So that's 4 midfielders. So I do think we need more bodies there, because what it means is that these guys are going to probably, I mean, overwork themselves. But in any case, what this tells me is that only 2 of them are going to start at once, at one time, and then we're going to have a creative person from one of the forwards playing as a number 10 in a 4-3-3. That's what I think it is going for. And again, you know, it makes you sort of question the non-invitation or the absence of Mikel, because we would need someone like him there. And speaking of strikers, Samuel Kalu, his mom has just been kidnapped. I'm not sure he's in the frame of mind to be in the squad right now. Even if she's released at some point, I'm not sure it's the right time to be calling him up to a squad, because I mean, he's going to be focused on trying to get his mom back from kidnappers. So I don't know, to be honest. You know, people deal with this thing differently. We saw how Mikel handled he was at the World Cup, nobody knew about it. He sort of got his father back and just kept playing, you know. So maybe Samuel Kalu is that kind of character. But I did speak to him a couple of days ago, and he sounded really down and really down. So I'm not sure if he can muster the strength to come out and actually play for the Super Eagles. But hey, that's just me talking. And I think. Yes, the one thing I also wanted to talk about was the absence of Taiwo Awoniyi and the inclusion of Paul Onwachu. Now, at first look, it'll be like, okay, hang on, what's going on here? We've all been talking about Taiwo Awoniyi and how great he's been, with Royal Excel Mushkron. He scored 6 goals and I think, 7 or 9 appearances for the club. In fact, actually scored 9 goals across all competitions, because he scored in the cup competition. He's also scored in the Europa. So this season he's tallied 9 goals. But here's the thing. Onwachu has actually scored more and played more games. Onwachu has played 20 games and he's got 14 goals across, in the league alone. He hasn't scored in other competitions, but he's also played there. So, and I remember a few years ago when Onwachu's team played against Manchester United. I mean, at the time he was raving hot. He was all the news. And I remember that some international media actually had me do a piece on him because they found him so hot. Unfortunately, he didn't quite bring it to, light up the game against Man United. But I mean, he was a big, gangling striker who could score goals. So I think it fits into the mold of strikers that Gernot Rohr is looking for. If you compare him to someone like Odion Igalo and Isaac Success and even Victor Osimhen, who's also in this squad, you kind of get an idea, of where Gernot Rohr is going with this. A big man to lead the line and then 2 runners flanking him on either side, plus a creative player right behind them. And one of those creative players would have been Kelechi Iheanacho, but he's not in the squad. And I mean, we can all see that he's paying the price for not having enough games at Leicester. I'm not sure. So that has got to be resolved at some point. But if Iheanacho cannot find a starting spot at Leicester, maybe he should think about moving elsewhere, because he is one of our more talented players, but he's not been able to break through at Man City, and even now he's also struggling at Leicester City. So we want to see him do a bit better. And then one last thing before I go. The home-based players. We've talked about home-based players numerously across the country, and there are those who would love to see more local players in the squad. This time we've got just one outfield player. These days it's hard to count Ikechukwu Ezenwa as a local player, because he's such an integral part of this squad. He's a goalkeeper. But so let's stick with the home-based, the outfield players. We've got Valentine Zonwafo, who was with the under-20s at the African Youth Under-20 Nations Cup. He did well. Gernot Rohr was there to watch, and he did promise that he was going to get 1 or 2 players from that squad to join the Super Eagles. It turns out that he got Zonwafo. But again, I think that tells us something, because when Rohr was talking about it, he did say he wanted to get a few more players, at least 2 players from that squad to come into the Super Eagles. But the fact that he only ended up picking 1, kind of tells me that he didn't quite see enough quality there. And even the Zonwafo, the Valentine pick, could have been more like, okay, I made a promise, so let me do it. Because I'm not quite sure that, when you look at that entire squad, I mean, the way they performed, I'm not so sure that, we should have them in the Super Eagles squad. But we'll watch out for Valentine and see what he does when he comes in. The good thing is it provides competition for Jamilu Collins at left back. And we've also seen that Brian Idowu, seems to be gradually getting away from this squad, which means that left back position is one that Rohr is still not satisfied with. The good news is Ola Aina can fill in there. He's done great with Torino to the point where they want a permanent deal for him from Chelsea. So those are my few hot takes on this current Gernot Rohr list. Let me know what you think, right or wrong, or agree or disagree.